Hello, a very good morning once again. I'm Chris Higenyi, and we are coming to you live from the Kampala Arena Conference Center. You're watching quality programming here on NTV. This is Morning at NTV, and that's the hashtag on Twitter. So please do follow and be part of the conversations as and how they happen. You can also follow the conversations as we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome to the Kickstarter conversation, and the topic is gaps in the Computer Misuse Act affecting media work. With me this morning are two eminent gentlemen, one in the media industry, the chairperson of the National Network for Human Rights Network for Journalists. That was a bit of a mouthful for me today, and it's very uncharacteristic, no doubt. Robert Sempala, a very warm welcome to the program.
Thank you, Higenyi, for having me. Good morning, viewers.
And Simon Musangala, a lawyer, who will be offering us a perspective that is legal and what it means on whether what you're about to share, if you retweet what we are broadcasting, means. Interesting there. Before I get into the details and how the media work is going to be affected, allow me engage Simon Musangala on what is the Computer Misuse Act.
Thank you very much, Mr. Higenyi, and our dear viewers. I'm glad to be here this morning. To begin with, we have the Computer Misuse Act that was enacted or promulgated in 2011. Following its promulgation, Parliament deemed it necessary to do certain amendments.
Yeah.
And it is these amendments that have become a thorn in the neck of most of the stakeholders, such as the media. The new amendment brings in, looking at its long title, brings in enhancing unauthorized access to information or data, curtailing hate speech, preventing sharing of anything related to children, among others. And that's why we intend to discuss this morning.
All right, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed with an overview of what the Computer Misuse Act is, something that has, of course, been ongoing. The amendments have been made. Allow me ask Robert Sempala. We, the media people, are huffing and puffing following the assent to this particular amendment by the President. Within the framework of the bill, before the amendment, there were already issues that were giving journalists a little bit of hard time. More like this one simply tightens the noose on the conduct of duty. Where are you right now? Are you even breathing?
Journalists are really scared because many criminal charges are roaming around their necks. There's uneasiness within the fraternity. I talked to one of the senior TV journalists who said if this law is to be sustained, he will go and attend to a bar. You know, putting all the vast experience he has in media, he says he can't stand, you know, operating in such an environment. He will instead veer off to working in a bar. And he really meant it. We're doing an interview and we're going through the sections of it. What we have so far is an environment that's going to be extremely difficult for anyone to practice this trade because given clauses like where you have to seek for authorization to record audio or video, let alone circulate, you must have authorization. It literally means every work you do can really be used against you as having offended this particular law. And from the onset, it was a bad law from 2021. And as HRNJ, Uganda Law Society, Unwanted Witness, and a couple of other people went to the Constitutional Court for interpretation of Section 24 and 25, which bring into force offensive communication and cyber harassment, because many journalists indeed were being interrogated because of their work under these sections. You would write something that is factual, but somebody thinks that you have offended them through that communication. There was a lot of vagueness in there. So we went for an interpretation, but of course, it's been way too long before the hearing could kick off, and now we really have, you know, a battle hardened. We have two zones to cage off. The one that we talked to court before, and and now the current one. You know, by its nature, Uganda Law Society is supposed to advise government on matters of law. But by the time they are jumping out of their safe haven to say we go to court, certainly means the government has not listened to them, given their vast experience and knowledge, you know, about law issues. Now, for us as journalists, we really must be crying louder, even the fact that you even see Uganda Law Society going to the courts for interpretation of these laws.
Okay, allow me ask you, as a media practitioner and stakeholder, to step out of this frame of the picture and look at it from the point of view of the drafters of this law.
Yeah.
Have journalists at any one point taken things for granted and perhaps been overboard in the conduct of duty, so much so that there is need to want to put them in a bit of more like bring them up to be controlled in the way they do their work, so that they can be either order or not to overly offend those that find themselves in their cover?
There's exhaustive legal frameworks to guide media work. And you made mention of the word control. The media must be regulated, not controlled.
Oh, okay.
All this law is seeking to do is to control now, which is very unhealthy for any industry. We even can look at it from a democratization process, where you have no freedom of expression, because this one is going to deal away with expression, not only for journalists, but generally for the wider citizenry. Journalists are really more touched because the clauses that are in here contradicting already this exhaustive legal framework, like access to information. It's very clear how you access information, how you use it. It's very clear how you report about children. The laws are there, 3 of them, very exhaustive, and they don't have any issues with them. When it comes to issues of falsehoods, issues of hate, it's extremely all clear, given the legal frameworks. People have been deformed and have gone in as, you know, for civil matters. Some even have gone criminally, and people have been charged, you know. So what the law is seeking to do literally now, like you pointed into the minds of the drafters, I think they didn't do a good job. It was too shoddy, and they were not even courteous enough to say let's push back and reorganize. Now they're in the battlefield, and their weapons are all being shot down literally from across the board. You're looking at journalists, they're crying foul. You look at lawyers, human rights people, literally everyone is saying this law. Even the border people that one will think are not up to speed with these things
with
already very concerned. People using their mobile monies. I have a lady, prominent one, I won't mention her name, but she has money that she owes us. But when you tell her, Madam, please send her money, says this is unsolicited information. So she literally is running away now from responsibility, saying this is unsolicited information, Mr. Sempala.
I think I like that lady. So you send her money, rather the message to pay up, and she's like, hey, this is unsolicited information. And this one did not take into account such civil matters. Okay.
Yes.
All right, we are lucky to have a lawyer on board the morning show. Just take us up to speed with the gray areas, especially when it comes to the drafting of this particular law. I'm not saying you are a proponent of the Computer Misuse Act. Do not get me wrong. I just want to pick your mind as a lawyer. We've already heard the president of the Uganda Law Society, Bernard Owundo, speak about the fact that even before he interrogates the nitty-gritty of the law, he doesn't like the drafting. How can lawyers or people who drafted this be so, well, pathetic?
Thank you. Thank you very much. To begin with, this law is not only going to affect journalists. It is going to affect
the public.
Or affects literally everybody. Uganda being a democracy, there are a number of things we borrow, we learn, and sometimes we unlearn, and sometimes we don't learn from our past. The journalists have been operating freely under the Press and Journalists Act of 1995. And if I look at Section 38 of that law, a journalist can access information, get information from whatever means, publish it, and is not obliged to disclose the source of their information, except when there is a court order. That is, of course, in tandem with Article 29, which talks about, of the Constitution, which talks about freedom of expression and speech, vis-a-vis Article 41 on access to information under the Access to Information Act. Now, what the Computer Misuse Act now, which is law, by the way, it is law. It's law now. It's no longer a bill, and anything you do can be used against you. What it seeks to bring is to curtail or bring in a concept where you are not supposed, when you access, first of all, you are not supposed to access, if you intercept any data or information about any person or group of persons, you are not supposed to share that information without the authority of that person.
Let's be specific. Give us an example. If I am at a certain reclusive hotel, and in the process I'm privy to actions or talk by an individual who happens to be of public interest, and I have that information with me, I'm supposed to go to him and ask,
that is what
Mr.
the law.
Musangala, I have a recording of you saying this and this and this as you are having your meal. Can I use it?
That is what the law envisages. Now, the framers of this article, and it's very unfortunate that the move of this motion is an advocate of the High Court, and is a respectable person. But at the end of the day, Parliament comes up with a collective responsibility. We shall blame Parliament for coming up with certain laws that are even very difficult to enforce. I was driving a point home. You get information, for example, you do investigative journalism. You have done investigative journalism in respect to how drugs are being stolen in hospitals, from this. Now, under this law, you are not going to publicize me because you have been taking my video and you have got me in a camera doing certain things. I think the government did not envisage the repercussion of this law, but it's going to be enormous on not only the private citizenry, but even the government, because there's a lot of information that has been brought to government's attention through information. For example, what has been happening in various government departments.
That's right.
You can now no longer have a luxury to publicize a documentary, audio, video, without my authorization. Now, what is strange is that this act does not provide what information you are supposed to seek permission. It does not define what amounts to authorization. What is authorization? If you come for a press briefing and I give you information, am I supposed to write to you an authority that please, this is the extent of information you are supposed to publicize? So I think this law is demonic in nature, and it is intended to curtail or to be, it is actually in conflict with the supreme law, which is the Constitution.
Okay, before I interrogate the aspect of human interest, especially in the conduct of media work for journalists, allow me ask you this particular question as a lawyer. We've had cases in the past where the likes of Kakwenza, Rukira Bashaija, and Stella Nyanzi have found themselves in a spot of bother for writing on a few government officials in a way that was deemed inappropriate. It's believed that this law is critically looking at such individuals and any other that might crop up, including the apparently out of order Lumbuye. You know, are we seeing a case of wanting to govern the flow of information, particularly that targets a few individuals, but there is no framework within which to hold only those accountable, and then we see an entire population being affected?
I think this amendment has specifically 4 clauses which the amendment brought in. Our concern for today, my concern for today was specifically on access to information. However, the law as a whole is not demonic. There are some angelic aspects of this law.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Yes, we have freedom to, we have freedom of speech, but freedom of speech has its limit. And I think it is, government has a duty to regulate. I don't think it is true that government is looking at specific individuals. Yes, it can look at specific individuals on what is being done to ensure the society is regulated. Yes, it's the government's role to do that. For example, you are writing something that is most likely to cause conflict among the tribes. If, for example, you come up and you are always writing the Bagweres are thieves, the Bagweres are this, my friend, you who is writing, if you are not from this tribe, you are most likely to bring hate from this tribe against another. I'll give you another example in respect to the children. This law has come in, and I think in this way, it is a good aspect of the law. You are not supposed to publicize anything in respect to the child. For example, of course, people have argued that, okay, we have been releasing videos of maids beating children, parents beating children. Yes.
And it helps bring to
and
the
it
fore
helps bring
vice that is going on in society.
Vice that's going on, and then justice to these people. However, the law goes further and it says, if you look at the last provision, it says, as long as the release of these pictures are in the interest of the child. That's the last provision. As long as it is in the interest of the child, then you are allowed to release. So that's a good aspect of the law.
And that depends on whoever is releasing to determine now, what is the interest of the child.
Exactly. Remember,
some people might be flawed in judging that.
Even when you look at the Children's Act, the welfare of the children is paramount.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Thank you.
All right, you have something that you have to...
but there were already two laws, the Children's Act and then the Data Protection and Privacy Act were very clear about children, so you didn't need a new law about that. But also, shortcoming about the same is that for now, most parents have been implicated and their guardians. So who is going to authorize you to release the same? Even the term public interest is so ambiguous, it's amorphous, it's not defined, so it's subject to abuse. You don't be a good framer of a law and then author such a thing that is going to breed controversy like it is now. He also makes mention of the fact that it is a good law because you know, people have been misusing a bit of social media here and there. But in the entire amendment bill tabled by Honorable Seko, there was no single mention of social media. We were one of the people that made submissions before the ICT committee chaired by Engineer Magogo, and there was no single discussion about social media. And when you look at the submissions of the 16 entities or individuals that went to before the committee, they did not discuss social media because it was not a point of reference. And were surprised that when the report finally came out, there was a clause about social media. It was imported in, and I'm sure Honorable Nsereko did not address himself to the same. Even when we're speaking on the microphones and everywhere, we were systematically referring to social media, but it wasn't even in the bill.
Is there a possibility, given your submission, that the drafter or the proponent of this particular law, Mr. Nsereko, didn't have an idea of the final piece of legislation that came out? Is that possible?
He was out of the country. Certainly, he didn't have an idea. I'm privy to the discussions and submissions of each of the 16 people. You almost see everyone saying, delete, do this. So certainly, the views that were received through...
proposed to delete.
Through
the other one decides whether to delete or not.
When you have a committee and you're inviting for public opinions, and 16 people come to you, including the Minister of ICT, including UCC, the police, the Attorney General himself changed. By the way, if you're going to read that report that clusters the submissions of different individuals, you see that the Attorney General that spoke on the floor of Parliament is very different from the Attorney General who was before the committee. Literally, you did not have support for the bill, and it really baffles us or surprises us a lot that this committee had 29 people, but 14 signed in favor, saying, okay, we are here. But the 15 disappeared in truth in air. I think did not want to associate themselves with the bill when it finally came before Parliament. And that's another point of contention. If you were 29 and only 14 of you are signing in favor, Yeah, one is saying we are opposed, the Honorable Namo Gagoreti. She's saying they oppose. But then when you read into the report here, before, leave alone the one that we received in Parliament, there were so many grey areas for, you know, champion this cause. And I'm not surprised, Chris, that everyone is thinking of running to court to challenge the same.
All right, let's return to the lawyer to give us perspective on exactly what jurisdiction when it comes to implementation of some of the clauses of the law, before I return to you for something else that regards to how the media will cope. For example, we have VPN and Facebook. You find that when you log in using VPN, you could be thrown in a location as far as Russia, Belgium. If you commit an offense under this law and VPN has thrown you in Kaliningrad, when it comes to jurisdiction and you being brought to book, how is that going to operate? Has that been catered for?
Thank you very much. This law has been made in such a way that whatever you do, it will get you. The most important thing is because they have it has critically looked at social media and explained literally almost all the social media networks, Twitter, and everything is listed in the Act. Now, even if you use a different name in your media, government has the capacity, if it is interested in you, to locate that the person using this is not a Mulwanya Muri, is Musangala. So even if VPN puts you in Germany and you're operating in Uganda, they will get you. It's just a matter of time. They can't get you. However, Ugandans shouldn't worry.
Why shouldn't we worry?
You know
honestly?
Why? Uganda is a democracy. You had the famous Public Order Management Act. This law, remember the confusion that was there? Police was saying we have power to...
Are they too similar? Very quickly.
They are almost similar, yes. So, it was taken to court, Constitutional Court. Constitutional Court shut down some of these provisions. So, the Parliament has done its part, the President has done his part, and I'm certain already we have people who are heading to court, or who are in court.
Interesting. That brings me to...
And the President would, I mean, the courts would have to declare some of these
provisions. That brings me to Robert Sempala to wrap this up. Are you part of the litany of entities that are taking government to court over this?
Yeah, a challenge is actually driving this show. Just yesterday, we met a couple of prominent lawyers, human rights people, many others that are all in the same cohort of challenging the same law. Uganda Law Society is saying we are here, let's go. Everybody literally is saying we are challenging the law. Even when they could be good things, but they're overshadowed now by the spirit of the framers of the amendment. So we are sure we'll cope either when court listens to us, we'll be happy. If they do not, then we'll appeal to another appellant jurisdiction. That is the East African Court of Justice in Arusha. We'll go there and say, please hear us. But because we had very systematic organized submissions that were set aside, and actually it also borders on the credibility of Parliament and the committee.
All right, gentlemen, many thanks for the insight and perspective on the Computer Misuse Act. You've been listening to Robert Sempala, the chairperson of the Human Rights Network for Journalists, as well as lawyer Simon Musangala speaking to us. I keep remembering Simon Peter in the Bible there. No doubt about that. Let's now go